Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this iconic theme song, and you see the stupid parakeet jumping on my head, I was trying to give Dodo a chance, and as soon as we start the theme songs, she starts up to her old tricks. I know, you think that's what people... Anyway, this is one of our shows, our theme shows. We call it Pointless Adventures in Literature. These are pointless adventures. Sometimes we promise you one thing here at the bathtub. Sometimes these adventures are pointless. Sometimes they're meaningless. Sometimes they're both pointless and meaningless, but they're always pointless, meaningless, or both. And that's something you can bank on here at the bathtub. We keep our word on and our promise on that. That's our disclaimer. We promise you all those things. Okay, or a claimer. It's not a disclaimer. It's a claimer. Anyway, today we're going to have a pointless adventure where you're going to actually come along on the pointless adventure, because this whole episode is a pointless adventure in literature. And that is what I was going to do was, let me see if I can find it here, is a lot of people on the Facebook page and just emails and just in general conversation, and every time you go in a bookstore now, you see this new list that the New York Times came up with, the 100 best books of the 21st century. So there's only 24 years of the 21st century, but they couldn't wait to put this list out because they love people in the book business love putting lists out because it sometimes sells the books that people are already buying is basically the point of all these lists, but to sell more of them. And I never look at these lists, but a lot of people were kind of interested and in the conversations. One of the things I always feel when a list comes out about the best books, I almost have never read them. Or if I didn't read them, I didn't like them. Or I just hate. And then most importantly is I'm never on them. So if my books aren't on them, I immediately hate the list. And then I don't really read the books most of the time anyway. So because we're kind of in our own little bubble here at the bathtub. Anyway, but in the course of looking over this list and people making suggestions and kind of seeing the pictures, I haven't looked at it very closely. But I will say that I did read a lot of the books, and there's a lot of good books on it. And of course, it's a stupid list. We all sort of agree. But at the same time, I thought I'd just go through it and browse through it really quickly, and just give some quick reactions to it. So we're going on a pointless adventure together through this 100 books. I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. Unfortunately, one of the other things I found is that you can't find just a printout of just the names of the books. I looked all over the internet in my modest capacity as a cyber warrior. And all I could find was the original list of the Times. So I'm going to browse through it. I didn't want to have the whole thing with me staring at the screen, but that's life. And what else I said? So the other thing that's most funny about the whole thing is I kept the 24 years. It kind of, those years both flashed by. So I thought I thought most of the books I had read on the list were much older than that or much more recent. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, it was kind of put my whole 24 years in perspective because I remember reading some of these books, and so I'll talk a bit about them. All right, so I'm just going through from the list. It's a 100 list. Dennis Johnson's Tree of Smoke. Never read it. Most of the books I haven't read, but I'm a big fan of Dennis Johnson. That's considered his best book. I really love my favorite Dennis Johnson is Nobody Move, the little short thriller he wrote. I think that's hilarious. The one he did is a series in the Playboy, I think. But anyway, it's a wonderful, funny novel. And I like most of Dennis Johnson's stuff, so I'm sure that's good. Allie Smith. I've never been able to read Allie Smith. Sorry, there's going to be a lot of that in here. Just never could get through any of her stuff. Ann Patchett. Never read her. Have no idea anything about her. Men We Reaped. Jessamine Ward. Kind of really don't know that name. I see it around. These are books I just see in the shops all the time, and I have no interest in reading. Wayward Lies, Beautiful Experiments by Saidiya Hartman. Never read it. It's a meticulously researched exploration of the lives of black girls whom early 20th century laws designated as wayward. So it's a nonfiction book. Hilary Mantel's Bringing Up the Bodies. That's at number 96. I've only read one Hilary Mantel book, and I really liked it, and I always forget the title, but it's about a woman who's a medium, and she contacts ghosts. It's one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read, and all the ghosts have personalities, and they're all coming around. It's a kind of a really unusual book. So I've always wanted to read Hilary Mantel, and I'm interested in reading her books about Cromwell. Zadie Smith, On Beauty. I read the first half of this when it came out in 2005. I mean, that was back when I was actually buying new books in England, and whatever the new big shop books were, I still was trying to read them. And I got halfway through and liked it, and never, and just completely lost interest halfway through. Station 11, my son tells me it's basically an apocalypse novel with Shakespeare. And the first thing I thought is, I don't really want Shakespeare in my apocalypse novels. I don't want him anywhere near my apocalypse novels. So I just never had any interest in it. And we tried watching the TV show, and we didn't like it. Elena Ferrante, never read her. The Days of Abandonment comes in at 92. 91, I have not read her yet, and I should read her one of these days. I hear good and bad things about her. 91, Philip Roth, The Human Stain. Now, I didn't realize it's 2000. See, that seems so much longer ago to me. But I actually like The Human Stain, and that's one of the 2 or 3 Philip Roth novels I really did enjoy. Also, it was sort of based, pretty much, I'm pretty sure, it was sort of based around my university English department. There was a guy who was a friend of his, and I always had the feeling that there was some information from our school that got into that book. But anyway, it was a good read. I enjoyed that book. And The Sympathizer, Viet Thanh Nguyen, number 90. Didn't read it. Didn't watch the TV show. I'm a little wary of books that turn into TV series on HBO because I get burned by those. I haven't really liked a lot of them. Hisham Matar, 2016, The Return. Never heard of it. Never read it. The Collected Stories of Lydia Davis. Okay, I'm probably going to piss people off here. This book, everyone's talking about how this is this great book of short stories. It's really wonderful. Lydia Davis is like the great short story writer. I got about 50 pages into it, and I hated that book. I have to say, I just hated her stories. So I'm sorry about that. That's 2010. Here's a novel, kind of funny title, Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. Never read it. Never heard of it. Frederick Douglass. Oh, this is the biography of Frederick Douglass. Well, that doesn't really seem to fit with other books, but Frederick Douglass is a kind of fascinating guy, and I would kind of like to read that. George Saunders' Pastoralia. Okay, I have a mixed feelings about George Saunders, but I really love the novella Pastoralia, where the guy's living in a diorama in like a Natural History Museum, dressed up like a caveman. It's really a funny story, and I don't remember any of the other stories in the book. That's weird. I don't know, but I really like that story. The subtitle, here's one. The Emperor of All Maladies comes in at 84. 2010, never heard of it. Well, I heard of it, but I've never read it. When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut. 2021, never read it, never heard of it. Hurricane Season by Fernanda Melchor, never heard of it. Now we can hear the leaf blowers are out here. That's wonderful. Pulp Head, essays by John Jeremiah Sullivan. Never heard of it. Elena Ferrante, The Story of the Lost Child. I heard of it, and I haven't read it. See, it's an adventure literature because it's basically kind of boring, like most adventures in literature. The Story of the Lost Child. Never read it. A Manual for Cleaning Women. Lucia Berlin. Never heard of it. These are short stories of their careworn, haunted, messily alluring, yet casually droll short stories. That just sounds like something it just sounds so phony. I don't know if I want to read that. There's one called The Other Name. I is Another, a new name. Oh no, it's called Septology, 78. You may not be championed a bit to read a 7-part, nearly 700-page novel written in a single stream of consciousness sentence. I'm not going to watch. I'm definitely not buying that. One sentence, I don't want to read that. It's just too stupid. An American Marriage, Tayari Jones. Never heard of it, never read it. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It's another Shakespeare quote. And I don't know what that is. By Gabrielle Zevin. Never read it, never heard of it. It doesn't interest me at the moment. Number 75 is Exit West by Mohsen Hamid, 2017. Never read it. Oh, and then it has like who voted for these things. So I haven't heard of the books, and Gary Steingart voted for it. So that somehow we're supposed to, if we like Gary Steingart, we might like that book. But I haven't read Gary Steingart either. Olive Kittredge comes in 1974. Olive Kittredge, 74. I have never read that book, but I really enjoyed the show. That was a TV series on maybe HBO or one of the shows, and my wife and I really enjoyed it. It was really nice. It was with Frances McDormand, who's always wonderful, and it was a wonderful TV show. So Robert Caro, The Years of Lyndon Johnson, The Passage of Power, biography of Johnson. I'm not keen to run out and read a biography of Johnson. I lived through the Johnson administration, so I don't know. Secondhand Time. This is another I think it's The Last of the Soviets. Okay, I haven't read that. It doesn't sort of interest me. Here's one, The Copenhagen Trilogy by Tove Ditlevsen. And it's 2021, and it's memoirs. And I don't know anything about that book. All Aunt Hagar's Children. Edward P. Jones. Okay, I read a couple Edward P. Jones stories, and I gotta say I didn't like them. I just couldn't read them. And so I often make snap judgments, and I haven't read enough of them, so maybe I'm wrong. The New Jim Crow. I hear Michelle Alexander all the time. It's by Michelle Alexandra. It's about the prison punishment of people for being black. And I've heard her speak a number of times on the radio. She's often on the Amy Goodman show. She's brilliant. I like her. So that's a book I might actually read. I'd rather listen to her talk about it. Here's a novel, The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. And that is number 68, and I never heard of it, never read it. I know this is kind of... I wanted to just go through, like, I haven't read all these 10 or 12, but I don't know. We're taking the long way around. We're going around the Cape. We're going around the Horn. Far from the Tree, Andrew Solomon. It's nonfiction about parents, children, and the search for identity. It doesn't sound, I'm not interested in that topic, but maybe it's good. We the Animals. It's a hummingbird. It's a novella. It's very short, and it's a very short novel by someone named Justin Torres. I've never heard of it, never read it. Plot Against America. So that's in the period. I kind of like the late Roth, and I've always been interested in reading Plot Against America, and that's probably one of the books I would put on my list to try to read before I kick off. The Great Believers, Rebecca Mackay. Never heard of it. Never read it. Nothing about these. Veronica. Mary Gaitskill's on there. Well, that's good for her. I can't remember if I read Veronica or not. I might have. I read her first novel I liked a lot, and her first collection I liked a lot. Her first novel, Two Girls Fat and Thin, I thought was a really good novel, and I liked her first collection, Bad Behavior. And I haven't read much of her since then. I know I read another novel of hers, and it may have been Veronica, and I did like it. I don't know Ben Lerner's work at all. 1004 comes in here. Demon Copperhead, Barbara Kingsolver, 2022. Okay, so to annoy people, I was asked to review one of her books, and it was the one set in Africa, and it's one of the worst written books I've ever read. I hated it. I just found the writing it was so pretentious. And I remember one of the characters, it sounded like Faulknerian, fake Faulkner or something. One of the characters thinks in palindromes, which is the stupidest idea I ever saw in a book. I still remember that passage where this kid is thinking in palindromes. Anyway, the book I read was terrible. I really hated that book, and I'm sorry, but I forget what the name of it was. Heavy, an American memoir by Kesey Lehman. I never heard of it, never read it. Middlesex, lots of people love that book. Very popular book. Jeffrey Eugenides. For some reason, I was never that interested in it, and I just never read it. Stay True, Wahasu. This is a college friendship in 1990s Berkeley. Okay. I've never read it, never heard of it. Nickel and Dimed on Not Getting By in America. Okay, Barbara Ehrenreich, number 57, is one of the great columnists. She was a great, great columnist, and really, she just was a good person, from you could tell from her columns, and she really was. She writes well about this screwed up country of ours. So I don't know if I'm going to read that. I did read her when she was alive and read most of what she published. The Flamethrowers comes in at 56 by Rachel Kushner. And I forget why I know Rachel Kushner. I think she's a columnist as well. I haven't read it. The Looming Tower. I don't want to read this book, Al-Qaeda and the Road to 911 by Lawrence Wright. I'm sure it's a good book. I've read enough about Al-Qaeda and 911 to last me a lifetime, but I'm sure it's a good book and make you pretty pissed off. Have not read 10th of December by George Saunders. Runaway by Alice Munro. I did read that collection, and I did read that title story. So I don't know how many. I haven't been counting these along the way, but I should. Runaway. That's one I did get. In fact, I'll count them up for the second part of this. I did like that book. Dennis Johnson's Train Dreams. That's weird. I did read that. I don't remember that one as well. I've read almost everything. I think I've read everything of Dennis Johnson's, but I still think I did read that and like it. But the best is Nobody Move. That is a hilarious thriller. So I haven't read that. And Life After Life. I have never read Kate Atkinson, but I have, what little I did read, I have actually just She's one of those writers I read pages of in a bookstores and so forth, and she's always a good writer. I think she's pretty good. All right, that's the top 50. I'm going to stop this now so these aren't too long. This is part 1 of the adventure, and I'm going to do the second one in a minute, just to do this all together. So you can bail out of this if you want, but I know it's disorganized. I'm going to try to come at least total up which ones I've read and which ones I haven't. Okay, I'm going to stop now, and Dodo and I'll be back in a minute.